Ready?
All three are good to go.
Amazing. Darren Godwin, welcome to the Progress Lab. We are so stoked to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
You are a performance psychologist.
That's correct.
How does one get into that field?
Well, first you have to study a degree of psychology. So APRA is the regulatory body for healthcare professionals in Australia, and they will designate courses that they will say are accredited and will train you in the field of psychology. And so they'll have listed approved courses at different universities. And then you'll need to attend it's a 4-year undergraduate, and then you'll have to do a postgraduate of some kind. And then you'll either have to do a work placement or a master's in a work placement, or you can do a PhD. And so there's a few different pathways, but at the end of that, you achieve general registration. And performance psychologist, the performance part just highlights the audience that I have experience in working with, or the demographic I have experience in working with. Most of the people I work with are athletes and performers. So therefore, the title reflects accurately my knowledge and my experience with who I'm working with.
Yeah, and when was the sort of point that piqued your interest in working specifically in that area, and why?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay. So I grew up playing cricket. So I played cricket from about the age of 9 till 18.
I feel like you look like a cricketer.
I look like a cricketer.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, that tracks. That tracks for me. Just letting you know.
Thanks, yeah, really. And I was interested in sport. Dad was incredibly, supportive of my journey through sport and created a lot of opportunities for me and drove me everywhere and taught me about it. There would always be sport on the TV. And so that journey of competing was super interesting to me, and I felt like I really identified with it. But I kind of just abruptly stopped at 19, where, you have to make those big life choices. What do you want to do with your life? Can you afford to really continue down sport? Is it going to lead the places you want to? How much sacrifice can you make? What about your education? So all these things kind of popped up for me, and I just kind of dropped it like a brick, unfortunately, and chose to study a little bit. And it wasn't till, I was working and had an experience where I was like, why does life feel really unsatisfying? My workplace is great. My managers are great. The people around me are great. I'm on a full-time salary. Why does life not feel great?
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, in our household, psychology, mentality, these things weren't discussed. They're not in the vocabulary. So I didn't realize it. I'd actually been interested in psychology and the psychology of what happens when people play sport. I was actually really interested in it, but just didn't know it. And so it wasn't until I had that experience and got really curious, much like you guys do in your podcast, and started to ask myself some really important questions. And that's when I found out that everything I was looking for kind of just seemed to lead into the field of psychology. It seemed to relate back to a paper in psychology. I'd listen to podcasts and I'd eventually find my way to a guest that was a sports psychologist. And I'd be like, I love what this person's talking about. It really resonates with me. What do I need to do?
Yeah, how do I get into this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
That's so cool.
Yeah, the long-winded way of how I found my way into psychology.
I love that. And now you run Condor Performance.
Yeah, I'm an employee at Condor Performance.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what is your, niche? Who do you work with the most?
I can't say that I work with any particular sport or demographic the most. We try our absolute best to support anyone in the performance domain. And it just so happens that, with the popularity of certain sports, you'll get more inquiries from that. Some sports have a better culture around
seeking
approaching help. Yes. So golfers, soccer, those are some really popular sports. Baseball, basketball. Yeah, you'll get a large inquiry around a portion of the most popular sports that have a good culture around seeking help. And you can get a lot of really fringe cases. I fielded an inquiry for someone that was at the international level of competitive Scrabble.
Wow.
So you get some really interesting people come for inquiries, because you sort of realize that there are kind of core principles that no matter whether it's sporting discipline or whether it's something like Scrabble, there is a mental element of performance in that. That's
For sure.
And that is the perfect segue into like my burning question. I've been fidgeting here because I want to ask it. What is it about sport that makes us, for want of a better term, shit the bed on game day? Like, why is this such a big field?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know if I have the answer, but I'm curious to explore it with you guys. I think it's something along the lines of maybe extreme expectations about results.
Yes.
And we tend to then misunderstand what we do and don't control within this scenario. So we get very results focused and we don't fundamentally control a lot of the result, which kind of leaves us in this like stuck space. We get uncomfortable. Then we start to fight with our own discomfort. And we're quickly so far away from the moment and what we've prepared to do in that moment.
It's sort of, it feels to me like there's so many different potential elements at play, right down to like, and you'd be able to talk about this from a sort of psychology point of view, but right down to like the roots element of like our humanness of like, this is threatening a narrative that I tell about myself that makes me feel safe.
Yep.
So as an example, I used the example yesterday on the potty that we did of like, if I really examine it for myself, and I'll just use weightlifting as an example because that's my sport, it's like, what is the perceived threat? And I think like at a deep level, the perceived threat is that all of this this daily narrative that I tell myself that builds up part of like who I feel that I am and my self-esteem is threatened in this moment if I don't rise to the occasion.
Yes.
And then I guess if you extrapolate that out by just the sheer amount of self-consciousness that comes from probably certain sports more than others, but that sort of feeling of all eyes on us that is potentially a discomfort as a human feeling as well. It's just a giant pressure cooker, isn't it?
Yeah, we can quickly add a lot of layers of complication to it. And you're seeing these intersections of different things. There are things that are just fundamentally human to us. And so I think there's been a lot of advancements in evolutionary biology in that field of science that really helps us understand the function of our biology and the function of our psychology. And we are exceptionally good threat detecting organisms.
Anxiety once upon a time was what kept us alive.
Yeah, and I'd say it still keeps us alive now. And they've sort of, you can see some studies in people that have sort of different activations in the amygdala in our brain, which is the sort of fear threat sensing part of our brain. And people that tend to have more active amygdalas will, obviously be more sensitive to different dangers. People that have less sensitive amygdalas tend to then go and seek out more dangerous things to do. I say dangerous carefully here, but like they still
thrill seekers.
Yeah, they thrill seek a little bit more, and it's just why.
Do those people generally make better athletes? Is there a correlation there?
That's a very difficult question to sort of say yes or no to. You'll notice a tendency that they'll gravitate towards certain sports that really benefit that trait.
Yeah.
So you look at something like motocross, and you're just like, oh my God, how do they go for that? You look at rock climbing and things like, oh my God, how do they go for that? Aren't they scared? It's like naturally their brains are organized in a way where they are up for it. They love it. They want the thrill.
Yeah, feel alive when they're doing it.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's such an interesting field. And so for someone like yourself, where do you start? Where do you start with someone? So, obviously there's so many different variables. And again, we were talking about this yesterday, but it's like all of the potential things presumably that would work for one athlete don't work for another. And I think, we make that assumption.
Or at least
because,
at specific stages.
Yeah, I mean, we
at.
make that assumption because I guess just using high-level sport as an example, I've been watching Sprint on Netflix and some of these guys are like geeing themselves up and they're the rap music and they're talking smack and whatever, and other ones are like hoodie on, headphones, like tunnel vision, don't look at me. And presumably, they have sports psychologists themselves or have found that works for their specific personality, sport, etc. And so with that in mind, and with that in mind of all the different sports there are, and the fact that, something like a golf potentially needs, someone to relax a little bit more, or maybe not relax isn't the right word, but be dialed in mentally, whereas I don't know, pulling a truck in strongman or something might need like the knee slap and the G up.
Yeah.
Where does someone like you start with a new client or team or athlete to determine, okay, what's going to work for you?
That's a really good question. I think we're often client-led, so we want to hear from them first where they feel like they need the support with. If you've experienced this yourself before, but it's like even if you could receive unsolicited advice and it could be fantastic, but if you're just like, that
Not
doesn't
ready for
stick,
it.
it doesn't stick for me. It doesn't really work too well. So we are often client-led, and we'll ask them what areas they feel are important for them to start with, or where they feel like they could gain the
where they're
extra
going wrong.
performance
Where do you feel
from.
like you're going wrong type stuff?
Yeah. And I will kind of preface some of this as well with saying that there's lots of different research out there as to how we support people, and it's really hard to kind of just draw from all of it and be an expert from all of it at the time.
Yeah.
So in my line of work, psychological flexibility is the body of science that I mainly lean into to support athletes, and psychological flexibility is the openness to our own experience. It is the ability to contact the present moment, and it's the ability to move our life in a direction that is meaningful to us. So sometimes the start of when I'm working with someone, it could be why, values, what's important to you, and I know that's
trigger.
it's gonna. I've opened the floodgates.
No, it's good. It's good. I wanted to open this gate. We might as well open it early.
Let's go.
So generally, you will start with trying to uncover intrinsic motivators for them. Is that right?
Something along those lines. Yeah, there's a reason why we're doing this, and values is an important piece. And again, speaking this from the context of psychological flexibility in the literature, and it helps us guide the actions and the decisions that we make when we get to difficult moments. Because one of the things that's unique in performance and sports psychology compared to standard psychology or clinical psychology or general population, that the task is demanding for what you have to do. It is highly complicated. The journey is long and tough. You will run into adversity at some stage. So what do you do when you run into adversity? And values plays the role of being able to expand our openness to take on discomfort. And so the example I'd use is like, I love my dog, so I've got these values around care and love that I have for my dog. Am I worried about him in certain situations? Like if the front door gets open and he might go onto the road? Yes. If there's another dog that approaches him, I'm like, oh, is he going to get bitten? Would I be willing to be bitten by another dog to protect my dog? Absolutely. I'm willing to take on a lot of discomfort when I'm connected with the thing that I really care about. So values really opens up this ability to go, okay, we're gonna come across some difficult experiences in this journey. Why are we on it to begin with?
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So then where is the connection for someone like me that's a little bit allergic to the too deep stuff and is more like, give me a strategy, please. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
How is that example with your values, just using that as an example, your values around your dog, how are they going to access that on game day when, let's say, they can feel the nerves taking over, or let's say it's a team-based sport and things weren't going how they wanted. The weather is not good or the conditions aren't ideal.
Yeah.
And a little doubt creeps in, so that's the adversity there.
Yep.
How then do they go like, okay, let's go back to Barney and how much I love him, whatever the dog's name is in that example, how can they bridge that connection? So I think that's the part that I'm missing.
Sure. I think there's some, like a lot of what we're doing is preparation beforehand, much like how you would be preparing athletes before they go to competition. It's, when by the time it comes to competition, it's a body of work that enables you to perform in that moment.
Evidence.
Yeah, we're not looking to necessarily have in that moment the
It's not a coaching
solution.
moment. Yeah.
We're doing the work beforehand. So, we can, there are values exercises in which we're trying to narrow down what you feel is most important, in particular what you feel is going to be the most important when the moment gets difficult. I'm not saying that necessarily if I was playing golf, I would think of my dog in order to help me play my golf. But maybe in an example for you, if I were just to throw it out there, be like, okay, as a mom, like what about, the perhaps you want to set an example for your kids that one day when they look back, they're like, oh, that's the values that I want to embody in my children. Would I be willing to stand up now in this difficult moment and make a deep commitment towards what I've practiced so that I can, my kids can see the values that I want to share with them at some point.
It makes perfect sense. But the little part of my brain still goes, that in itself feels to me like added pressure in a moment that's already a pressure cooker. So have you ever seen it play out that doesn't work for athletes? I know I'm really pushing against the literature right now, but it's like that to me is like if I'm standing up on the weightlifting platform, I'm already like nervous as shit, like my hands shaking, whatever. And then I'm like, damn, I need to set an example for my kids. I'm like, oh God, I can't do it.
Oh my God, what if I fail? What if they think I'm a failure?
Yeah. So how do you access it in a way that it's like it increases performance rather than just adding to expectation?
I appreciate that. Yeah. And I'll expand and go psychological flexibility is more than just values.
It's layer one.
Yeah. There's 6 processes that the research highlights. There's acceptance, there is committed action, there is cognitive diffusion, there is values, there is self as context. So there are all these different layers to it, and it's the interplay between each of them. So not only is it, do I know why I'm doing what I'm doing? Again, it's not. I wouldn't suggest we're trying to call upon that at the moment that you're doing it. Competition day is just it's go time.
Yeah.
We've already done this work. I hit the mic. We've already done this.
Yeah.
It's go time today. Let's just let all that go. But we don't need to question the values.
But it sits in the background as a system that helps, right?
It's practiced and embedded in everything that you're doing. Why wake up in the morning? Why go to the gym?
Is that so that and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like you've done all the preparation, you've gone through the processes, you've almost experienced it and tried to challenge training in a way that when you get to competition, it becomes singularly focused?
Correct.
We're just focusing on the process at the moment. We're not focusing on outcome. We can't control that.
Correct.
We can just control the one moment that's in front of us.
Yes.
And then after that moment's passed, we move on to the next one.
Correct.
If a bad thing happens, we have to have flexibility in order to be able to go, cool, it's a bad thing. We're not going to think about it. It's time to reset and go again.
Yes.
Is that kind of what?
That is exactly it. Yeah. Competition day is go day. We've done the work beforehand.
And at the core of it, is this just building a more robust and stable sense of self so that on competition day, it's like you have this feeling in the back of your head, whether it's subconscious or whatever, that like it might not go my way today, but like I'm still cool with who I am, which potentially removes some of the threat?
Yeah, absolutely. So self as context, I know they get confusing labels. I wish I came up with some better ones, but that talks to our flexible sense of identity. And it's like, so, it can change rapidly. And I think to address something you even mentioned at the beginning is something happens in sport called identity foreclosure, where we start to just think we are the thing that we're doing. So it's like, as a human, I'm just a lift. I'm a competitive lifter. So if I fail in this moment, then what am I? Like,
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And presumably the higher level you get in a sport, the more that sort of feels true because it's your career and it's also, all the hours you're spending like that is your singular focus a lot of the time.
So we want a flexible sense of self. It's like, it can really depend on who you ask. Because you could ask your children, like, who is mum to you? You could ask your own parents. You could ask your friends. You could ask a client that you're training with, like, each person's going to come back to you with a different sense of who you are. And so we're just trying to develop this flexibility with our own mind because, again, it's our mind that's reflecting this narrative back to us. Like we're saying it to ourselves, I'm this and I'm that. What psychological flexibility is also trying to help do is separate who we are from what we think. We're going to have a lot of different thoughts. Some of those thoughts are going to be directed towards you. Those thoughts aren't you. They're just thoughts. They exist. Do we have the flexibility to just acknowledge that that's a thought and let it go? Where we go wrong is when we get entangled with all of that and we believe it. We think it's fact.
Yes.
And so, there are processes that we try to do to help sort of really untangle.
Cool. That's so interesting. Thank you for explaining it like that. I'm like, okay, that actually makes a lot more sense to me now. So how then? So if you're working with an athlete that comes to you and you've sort of you've explained this process. You've outlined the sort of method that it's actually a lot of work along the way. It's not. I'm not just going to give you like a couple of tips on game day. There's a lot of water that has to go under the bridge first.
Yeah.
As a professional, then in that industry, is there a bit of pressure on trying to get an athlete a win so that they can see your value as a professional in working with them? Like. And what I'm talking about is like the needle probably moves pretty slowly, especially for some athletes that maybe compete twice a year, 3 times a year, or even less, something like that. So how do you get that buy-in from an athlete to go like, trust me, just stick with the work, like it will pay off?
Yeah, it's a great question. And yeah, that's part of the profession that's really delicate. We've got to practice what we preach as well, and not try to input my expectations and my hopes and my thoughts and my experiences of what I hope. Of course, I hope all my clients succeed. I want them to win everything. That's what I want. Am I going to put that on them? That's what I do the psychological flexibility work on myself for, to not put that stuff on them. But yeah, buy-in, I think, is I usually try to relate mental work to the technical physical work. So I don't do weightlifting as a sport. If I came to you and go, I'd love to be great at weightlifting tomorrow. Like, can you make me like state level competitive ready by tomorrow? You'd be like, you're dreaming,
be like,
right?
Give me your credit card. I'll leave it.
How much are you willing to spend?
There's a big body of work that goes into it. So it's like the mental work's no different. Yeah. Like, if you expect to be great at what you do technically and physically, it's no different mentally.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think a lot of people might fall into the trap of thinking that this whole body of work is just a little bit of icing on top the week before game day or whatever it might be, when really what you
just
seem
give me
to
one
be
exercise,
saying
I'll fix it. It's like a physio. Like people have the same expectation. Go to physio. I did my 20 clams. Why is my knee not feeling better?
But it's sort of everything that goes into the entire approach, really.
Yes.
Interesting. What about individual athletes versus team sport athletes? Presumably, again, team sport brings in a whole other social element to it, which can probably complicate things. And there's interacting personalities and hopes and dreams and all of those things that we're reflecting back to each other in the team. So let's just add another layer of complication. Yeah. Is there a different approach that you take with your team-based athletes than your individual ones?
That's a good question again. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I necessarily have the widest or broadest or deepest experience with working with teams of people at this stage. But for the ones that I have and the experience that I do have and the times that I talk about within our own team for our own professional development, you can kind of think about, I think, there's core principles that still come from psychological flexibility that we want across the board. So there's obviously trying to get everyone on the same page about what we're trying to accomplish. But if you kind of think about it like an overlapping Venn diagram, like for the most part, individuals are going to have their individual contributions, but we're kind of just trying to look at what that overlapping piece is. And why are we all here together? What are we trying to accomplish together? What's that shared thing that we can accomplish together? And I think it's really about trying to have that sort of shared vision about what we're all here to try to do together. Because when we're all bought in, then we're all open to do the work that we need to do.
Yes. Does that create then, like, I suppose, a mutual respect? Because you could have two differing athletes, like, I mean, Alice was alluding to before with sprint, but you could have the extroverted, loud, I need to wrap myself up, and you've got the people that are like, don't even look at me, don't talk to me type stuff. But if they are pulling in different directions, so trying to find that common ground in the middle so that even though you've got two different personalities, like, well, I respect their job, I don't agree with it and I wouldn't do it that way.
Correct.
Vice versa. And that's when the team kind of comes together.
Yeah, I think that's something like professionalism, where it's like, as a team that's performing together, like there's a role, a job, a duty, a task. There's something that we're all trying to accomplish together. But we've all got our own sort of unique contributions to it. And you're not here to be best friends with one another. You don't have to love the person and everything and agree with all of them, everything they do all the time and the way they think about things or the way they do things. We just have to respect it.
Yeah.
So I think it's about professionalism. It's like, I know what I need to do to succeed. I know that what my teammates need to do to succeed. I trust that they'll do their job. I'll do my job. We're both working together towards this one thing. Yeah.
Where does one access or determine the optimal level of like psychological arousal, let's call it, on game day that is like, I am ready, again, using weightlifting as an example, I'm ready to like murder this bar, but I'm not spraying energy. I'm not so fired up that I'm losing my technical cues. Like, how do we harness that?
This is a fantastic question. And I'm going to dial back just a little bit to try to get to the answers of it, because some of this comes from the history of perhaps psychological interventions, or what we understood about psychology and how it's evolved over time, or what we're discovering over time. So it's often sort of described in three waves in terms of psychological evolution of interventions. It started off with behavioral therapies. So if you've heard of the Skinner's dogs, it's the positive reinforcement. It's the classical conditioning. How can I pair a neutral stimulus with a positive stimulus or a negative stimulus? Rewards and punishments and those types of things. So it started with that. Then it moved to like cognitive behavioral therapies, where it started in clinical circles where people were reporting, intrusive thoughts, negative thoughts are really overpowering. And the solution was to sort of be like, well, how do we control thought more? So how do we change negative thought to positive thought? And this is where that arousal balancing came into the piece, where we're just like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could just kind of balance the level of arousal? And it just turns out that that's actually really difficult.
Yeah.
And that's where sort of the third wave psychology is sort of looking at other methods now, including presence and acceptance, and actually not trying to jump into the control agenda, because something happens called metacognitive worry, where we worry about our worries, and this is just fundamentally human. So we go, okay, all right, I'm here to get my arousal level at just the right spot. How do I get it at the right spot? It's not there, it's too low. I'll quick bump it up. Oh no, it's not there, quick bump it down. And where's our focus going? Where does it need to go?
Not on task.
It's not on task.
Yeah.
And so that's where sort of the third wave psychological flexibility research comes in, where we're really trying to actually drop the control agenda and actually, you know what? Your ability to access what you've trained is available to you all the time. So if we can let go of wanting to control that experience a little bit, be a bit flexible with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can still access your abilities, focus on the task at hand. Let's go.
Does it come down to being present in the moment? Is that kind of always a core thing that's like humans perform better when we are present in the moment?
Yes, I'd say like performance happens in the present moment. And I guess our brain is kind of darting us around from the present moment. That's kind of its job, right? So it's anxiety's functions to look into the future, predict what could go wrong, and then warn us about it. And then we can also look into the past and have something that was really painful happen and go, I don't want that to happen again. So it's doing its job. And presence is not about being present all the time. It's about the ability to contact it when we need it. So I wouldn't say it's not a sole contributor. Like psychological flexibility is an interaction between all of those 6 variables that I'm talking about. But it is an incredibly important skill to develop, and it is one that's can be practiced so that it can be ready for us to access when the time comes for it.
That's so interesting. And I mean, there's other things that you hear around this sort of space of like, all right, visualization. So I need you to visualize going out onto the platform, again, just using weightlifting and just nailing this lift. I want you to like feel how it feels when you're like sitting in the bottom. It's perfect. It's great, whatever. But then I go, well, is that just, again,
too far forward,
marrying myself to an outcome? Because it's like I'm already there. Like, don't I want to just come back and like be where I am now, chalking up, walking out onto the platform? So it's. I mean, in that example, what's the better thing to do?
Oh yeah, it's a great question. My mind's going a couple different directions with that, because I did my postgraduate thesis in visualization, so I happen to read up a lot on the literature.
What's the purpose of visualization?
Yeah, so there's lots of different styles of it, I'll call it. Some are like motivational, I guess the purpose was to try to visualize something that's going to help
feel and
to help you get moving towards the thing that you want.
Like almost initial motivation versus like in the moment.
Yeah, something like that. But the one, like there was just too many. I didn't even have time to get into all of them writing about it. But the one that's the most researched for sport is like functional equivalence, and functional equivalence is more just like can you just realistically experience what you might experience and just be in that moment? Like incorporate what you might feel emotionally, incorporate sensations. It is to like wear the equipment that you would wear, be in the environment you would be in, have the sounds that you would have in that environment. You would incorporate your mental rehearsal with, maybe you'd have earbuds in playing background audio of what you're doing. You're just trying to immerse yourself fully in the experience. And what functional equivalence was looking at was actually when we imagine movement, it actually activates the parts of our brain for real movement. So the motor cortexes were active. We're just inhibiting movement. So we're still, and our brain is actually exercising the neurons for the movement.
Yeah.
Isn't that like when somebody hasn't, like they can't move their arm or something, and you can actually minimize muscle atrophy by visualizing doing an exercise?
It's a great question. I don't know the answer to that.
I think that's one of those stats that I told you I'd cook on this, but I feel like that's a thing.
There's lots of interesting things in there. There's ones where people have lost their limbs, and if they have a mirror and they visualize their hand moving, they can almost feel like they've got their arm back. There's lots of interesting. The depth is insane.
Yeah.
But yet the purpose of the functional equivalence is like, if you can't do physical practice, if you do this visualization, it's better than doing nothing. You'll maintain the neurons, because what's happening is like if our networks aren't active, then they go dormant. So don't ever really lose them unless you have like physical brain damage, or you have a neurological disorder in which the neurons are decaying. But the point of that visualization was actually more just to fit in between doing nothing and you doing the physical training, so you can at least get some type of practice involved.
And is there an element of trying to access some, I guess, familiarity that will potentially decrease the threat as well? So if I've visualized doing this exact weight that maybe I've actually physically never touched before, if I've visualized it, some part of my brain might be convinced that like, we've done it before. It's okay.
Yeah, I think from a psychological flexibility perspective, we're just trying to probably let go of the control agenda there.
Yeah.
Just there's this, of course, we all want to feel safe in what we're doing, but we're trying to be really conscious of processes that might lead there. Again, it is the focus on the task at hand. Task focused performance is, in the literature, by and far, like really solid. That's what helps people perform. So, little things like this probably make up, only small portions. If small portions, in this instance, like probably doesn't attribute to performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. What do you think is the biggest mistake that people make that are, I guess, new to sports, or they're not that experienced with sports when it comes to like game day, platform day, the moment? What are the biggest blanket mistakes that generally apply to everyone that it's just not a good idea to do?
Not a good idea to do. That's a tricky one. I think it's more like
so many things.
I think people accidentally fall into it. Like they'll accidentally fall into results focused performance.
100%.
So I'm not sure how much of it is like someone does something deliberately that is a detriment.
So on that, and this is a kind of a segue, kind of not, because coming from a coaching perspective, one thing I'm fascinated about is the language that I use early on when I'm having a conversation with someone. And that might be someone who has, like Alice had experience before she came here. So obviously I've got to meet that experience where it's at and then just kind of slowly shape or guide it in a direction, so to speak. But what I'm, I suppose, a little bit more interested in is like someone that has no experience and almost like using specific language so that they don't fall into that trap.
Got it.
Because in something like weightlifting, and it's something I've been thinking about really recently, is like if you boil it down, the only two things to improve is your snatch, clean and jerk. And that is the only result that's the result, I should say, that people get the most stuck on.
Yeah.
There are a ton of other things that go into improving those things. But for some people, if let's say they're improving their flexibility, they're improving their capacity,
sleep,
or
nutrition,
all these things,
they
can struggle if the period of those two lifts not going up starts to get to a certain point.
Right.
2 months, 3 months, sometimes a year. Someone's gone 2 years without, say, a PB in one of those lifts.
Yes.
How do you early on create that? Resilience was the word I was thinking of earlier, but like how do you create that flexibility, like in the language that I use, so that someone doesn't get trapped? I know that's really hard to say.
Yeah.
But like, how do I ensure that I'm not like I'm not emphasizing, oh yay, PB snatch, ring the bell, which is something that we do.
Yeah.
And that goes back to Chris used to have goals on the board, and you've recently taken those goals off for that reason. So it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one. Language is a really tricky one because it is something that underpins the psychological flexibility research and why trying to change our thoughts is so difficult, because it's not actually the content of the thought, it's how we relate to the content of the thought.
Yeah.
So we play this really tricky game because you don't know what relations people have with the words already. So you could say a word and someone has a really positive relationship to it, or they have a really detrimental relationship to it.
Yes.
So, you know, trying to choose the words carefully is tough. Goals, like, they do play a purpose. And I'd say, you know, we do need the flexibility to be able to look at the outcome that's being measured in our discipline and have the ability to let go and not fixate on it.
Yes.
So it's like we don't want to avoid all the time, you know, showing, I think, athletes what the result is. Like we're trying.
Well, and that's why I suppose it comes back to, for me, it's like, as a coach, I have the third-party perspective in terms of like, don't get me wrong, I still have doubt within certain things I've programmed for people, but like I can take a step back and look at all of the positive things and know that like we are on the right track.
Yes.
So I suppose it's like how, like arming people with like that flexibility. I suppose it comes back to psychological flexibility in terms of like, it's a rough patch, or even though it's a rough patch, all of these other things, all the controllables are being controlled quite well right now.
Yes.
So I just need to keep on the path that I'm on.
Yeah, I think the consistency comes from us to reinforce it with, you know, the people we're working with, is that, okay, let's have a really clear understanding. What comes first is, you know, effort, quality of practice.
Yeah, chasing excellence or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. What does that look like? Let's evaluate that first. How well are we doing with that? Can we track that over time? Okay, let's not ignore the outcome, because it is fundamentally part of what we need to do.
Yeah.
It's there. But when we get distressed about why we're not accomplishing the outcome that we're after, can we just remind ourselves like, nope, we've actually done what we need to do. We've done the best thing possible. We've focused on the things we can control, and the quality's been great. And what we're doing is hard. Like, I think that's part of what I try to build in from the start too with the athletes that I work with, is like, we chose hard. Like, that was our choice. Like, you know, if we want it easy, go beat a bunch of 5-year-olds, but that's not rewarding. That's not rewarding.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing I like about that is that like, and it might be good, might be bad, is like, most people didn't start with that outcome in mind. Like, most people didn't come here to be high-level weightlifters. Some did. Some came for sure. They were drawn to, they saw something, I want to be that for whatever reason. Yeah. But most people came looking for community, looking to be a little bit stronger. And early on, I would get people into competitions quicker than what I do now. And now I'm like, I want people to like, because I'm very process driven. I want everyone to focus more on the process, because I feel like, and goals are important, but I very rarely, like, I don't necessarily agree that the outcome is the be all end all.
Yes.
It's like the person you become along the way, all that type of stuff is something that I try to focus on people. But it is something that, like, you kind of said it before, so many people fall into the outcome.
Yeah.
And my thing is like, not how do I protect them, but like, how do I ensure the culture? Yeah. And this is something I was going to talk about later anyway, is like, how do I ensure the culture is one that is like, we celebrate those outcomes, but if I, let's say we spend a night and 6 people PB and 2 people in the corner being like, no, I didn't PB, I'm a failure, everyone else is doing really well.
While still not going so hard out the other side to not recognize that it's an outcome-based sport. It's literally your total is where you place is your total. Like,
So
So
I feel like that happens as a result of everything else, like the psychological preparation, the preparation, or the focusing on the process of it all. Like, I feel like if I can get the right certain, whether it's like early education for athletes, as well as the culture within the place, the outcome is like something that will happen.
Yes, it's a byproduct of...
Doesn't matter when, but it's going to happen. And like, you can set specific goals. And if it's not like, let's say you say I want to represent Australia, there might be a point of like, what does that look like? We need to have a discussion about that. But it's like, if you're like, I just want to make it to nationals or something that's reasonable in a 6 to 12 month period, it's like, cool, we just need to shift 1 or 2 things. And then we just point the ship in that direction. We keep each other accountable, and then you move. So my thing is like the culture of it all, because we have such a broad range of people.
Yes.
And like how I can help foster that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like some of the things I've done in the past have actually detracted.
Yeah, I think we all like have fallen into that trap before where we really innocently think that we're onto something and it's like, well, maybe that wasn't the best.
Yeah.
Oop, you failed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like, oh my God, that person hates barbells now.
Yeah, it's hard. And I think what's cool is that you're paying attention. I think that's the coolest part of all of it is like, I'm trying to refine it. I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to do the best by the people that come by here. And I think that's epic. And, you know, I was just sort of thinking like as you were asking what type of language, something that did come to mind is like, I try to define what success looks like outside of the result itself. So, you know, it could be, I'm here to challenge myself today. It could be, you know, maybe there's a culture or team-based one. And I think team-based and culture-based things, I think, add just another layer of complexity because of that overlapping Venn diagram.
For sure.
People are so different.
Yeah.
You know, you're not really responsible to make everyone happy. You know, you're there to help them, you know, train as effectively as possible and give them the best tools and things. At the end of the day, they've got to come to the party and meet with what we stand for
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
Such a good
And
point.
I'm well aware of that in terms of like, I could have the perfect of everything and it's the wrong person at the wrong time.
Yep.
Yeah, and you don't want to like infantilize the people that walk in here. Like they
definitely
should
not.
be empowered to be on their own journey of that discovery, right?
Yeah.
My whole vision is that like when they inevitably leave, as everybody always does,
Yep.
Be it 1 year, 5 years, 20 years, that they just left better. Like the thing, like I don't think weightlifting is anything special. I think the hardness of it makes it unique. But like I think it's the idea of like people being able to leverage that outside of here, because it's like you have to come up with like you've got to look at certain things, and a lot of it does come back to like the person looking in the mirror and how they're behaving and what they're carrying. It's like you can then leverage that into almost everything else. So my only hope is not, I don't want to infantilize or whatever the word was, but it's more that like how do I set them up and not detract from it? Like
And foster the culture.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because eventually, like I've seen a mentor of mine's gym, the culture that had that gym, he was like almost like a lifeguard in the end.
Okay.
He'd done so much work through the early years. He had his generals that did the majority of the work.
Yeah.
He very rarely had to say anything. Like he would, even training people, he never really had to focus on technique because the standard that was set so high,
Yep.
you know, you partner with that person.
Yeah.
And then he'd just watch.
Yeah.
And he would obviously, if someone was feeling lost or they were getting away from the group, he'd intervene.
Yeah.
And we heard that when we spoke to, we had a guest on that owned a really successful CrossFit gym with high-level athletes right down to your beginners. And we asked a similar question, like how do you sort of balance that? And she said she was just ruthless with booting people out that were not culture fits.
Okay.
Or that were detracting from what she was
Well,
trying
this,
to
fun enough
build.
to say, this guy had a vouch policy. It got to the end where it's like the only people that can start in my gym have to be vouched for by somebody else.
Interesting.
And if that, let's say that person wasn't a fit, you're never allowed to vouch again. So you would only bring in people that you thought were a good culture fit. So, but obviously you can't do that in every environment.
Yeah.
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 Interesting.
Yeah, lots of different methods. But you touched on something interesting too, which I think comes across in some of the studies of team sport, is that actually what helps with success in team sport is the players are accountable, or the athletes are accountable for one another, and the coach is not accountable for keeping everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's if you're doing the culture, I don't know what the right way to say it is positively, but
There's generals in
people
the
are
group.
bought into it, and they will help each other stay on track with those values or with those philosophies that you're trying to establish.
Yeah.
In a real practical sense, because it seems like a lot of what you're talking about comes down to being able, that psychological flexibility, being able to come back to the present moment, not being too focused on the outcome, and being able to access that flexibility on game day, in training, etc.
Yep.
So from a practical standpoint then, when that really outcome-based high-pressure thought comes along, what do we do with it? Do we say, do we try and convince ourselves that we care a little bit less? Or do we try and let it go?
Letting go is probably the direction that I would suggest, where, again, we're acknowledging that it's a thought. A thought is just a piece of content separate to who you are in this moment. And the way we're trying to, like in most sports, time is precious. Well, there's no time to be debating ourselves when we're out there, and there's no time.
Yeah.
We are trying to let go. Some of the things that we can use to practice to help build that skills is journaling. So a process of writing, putting our thoughts out on paper. We can nickname our mind, so externalizing the thoughts from who we are. So you can give your brain a nickname. Humor's a good way to diffuse the intensity of a thought sometimes. So you can
So if my brain was Janine, I'd be like, Janine,
calm the fuck down, Janine.
On, not now.
Yeah.
You'd be like, pipe down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Psychological
cool.
flexibility has often been given sort of this this idea of like you thank your experience a little bit. It's not always like that, but that is one of the research-based strategies to manage thoughts, is to just say, hey, Janine's there to help you. Like, she's just really cautious about things. And she's just going to send you a lot of concerns your way. So Janine's actually got good intentions. And you say, thanks, Janine. Like, I know you're here to help, but not now. Now's my time.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. Janine's coming with me on the comp platform next time. I absolutely love that.
No, she's going to stay in the warm-up room with me. And you're going to walk out.
Yeah. You stay here, Janine.
You walk out.
I'm going to go make this lift. I'll be back in a second. I love that. That's so cool. I had not a debate, but an interesting conversation with a colleague. Neither of us are sports psychologists, but we happened to be talking about, because I had a competition coming up where there was a really specific outcome that I wanted. And it was a qualification. So I had to hit a certain number to qualify. And then, of course, you do all the backwards mental gymnastics of like, okay, so then if I do this and I do this into the specific lifts. So anyway, this person was asking me, I think it was the day before, like, how you feeling about it or whatever. And I said something like, yeah, really good. Like, it's just, the outcome will just be whatever it is and I'll be okay with it either way. And he goes, that's the worst thing. That's the worst approach you can have. And I was like, okay, sir, like, where's your PhD? But anyway.
Pull your degree out, please.
He said that he was listening to some really famous sports psychologist that I feel like was in the golf world or something like that. And he said, like, no, that's the worst thing you can do. It's better to reframe it as, I have done everything that I can do to contribute to the outcome that I want. And I recognize that the outcome that I want is still there, but the preparation has been done. And so where does the evidence sit? Which is better?
That's really hard to tell. Yeah, I'm not sure if I've seen particular studies on something as specific as that. But I think that there's just a degree of like individualness to everything. So
one athlete is perfect for and another athlete the other one's perfect for.
And so some people might come into a situation where they kind of just genuinely do come across it more casual like that. That's just the way they prefer to do it. And when you try to like add the layer of intensity to them, it just doesn't gel for them, and vice versa. Someone prefers to be really intense and be like, calm down. You're like, F off. Like, So, there is a level of individualness. And I think the journey is about knowing what works for you.
Yes.
And I think what's really interesting, I'll use golf as an example, but a really interesting thing across golf is like a lot of the top golfers have got a lot of quirks. Like, you would never teach it. You would never teach it to someone, but they've just almost unapologetically understood who they are and what works for them, and just gone, I just do it this way. It works.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of that I think
that's really interesting. And we were talking about this yesterday on the potty. One of the best performances I've ever had on the platform is when I was just feeling really silly. And if someone didn't know me, they'd be like, this is going to be a disaster. Like, calm down. She's laughing. She's, pointing at the referees, like just really having fun. And I think I remember thinking to myself, oh, yes, I've got a bottle of vodka in my car. I'm going to have a vodka in the car park when I finish this. Like, just, and it was almost just like, who cares? Let's just go. And it seems like what you're saying is that really worked for me because of whatever reason it was
your values?
Penny drop, maybe values, but a penny drop in my personality, whereas potentially for someone else that might take their focus right out of where it needs to be.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think I was listening to the podcast you put out after that competition, and you mentioned the drive that we have socially to want to fit in. And I think that kind of alludes to that a little bit. Why is it hard to kind of be silly in that situation when everyone else isn't? And this is a big fundamental part of our survival, is that we've survived by being able to fit in with one another. We want to belong. We want to be valued. It is so uncomfortable to stand out. But sport ends up being this really different circumstance where actually it's okay. Like it's okay to be different from the group in this field. Whereas it actually might be really challenging for a child in school to be like, hey, it's okay. Just be really different from everyone else.
Yeah.
That actually might be a bit tricky.
dangerous.
We're conditioned all the way up to
For
be like,
sure. Yeah.
And then as well, I mean, you'd assume that a lot of people, as they've entered their sporting careers or whatever, they're looking to the greats and they're looking at what they do. And a lot of that is being, copied from people that we see. So on that, with your clients, do you encourage them then to just try out different stuff and then sort of, what is the system, I guess, or process that you use for them to then pick the things that are working to create this perfect little storm for their performance?
Yeah, great. I kind of encourage the creativity of, let's experiment together. I'll say that. I'm like, there's no piece of research that I can show you that would go, this 100% works for you and everyone else that does what you're doing. Can't find it. So I can give you the skeleton of it. I can give you the structure of it. I can give you some examples. You can, then play around with it. Have a go. See this one, see that one, see what works for you. And I'm come back to being guided by them and what works for them and encouraging them that, there is a part of this that it's about you and you can express that the way that you want.
So cool. Let's talk about bouncing back from shit performance or from I really need to dial down the bogan a bit sometimes. Sorry.
That's okay.
Let's talk about recovering after failure.
Yep.
And then I guess because that's when I think people assume that with sports psychology, it's all about the lead up and the game day and whatever, but we don't hear much about what happens afterwards. Yeah. Both after, let's say, failure for sure, because that's when potentially we start picking up the pieces and reflecting and whatever. Yeah. But also after big wins, because, I've heard that after big wins can come this big, the post-Olympics depression and things like that, where it's just sort of like a loss of sense of self. So what is the sort of method, or where do you work with people after big competitions when they've had an outcome that's been extreme one way or the other?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's first to just provide a space to be reflective in that experience and to go through a process of acceptance and acknowledgement and understanding of all the different thoughts and emotions that went into that. We're trying to make sense of, I guess, in some ways why it's happened. We care about something. So yes, okay, we've gone in here, we're heavily invested. The result doesn't always go our way. Sometimes if it's a big failure and we don't meet it, it makes sense to be disappointed. And so are you allowing yourself to feel that disappointment? And at a certain point in time, it'll be like, okay, we've acknowledged that this exists. We can't go back in time. So what's meaningful to do from this point? And we kind of almost reconnect again, perhaps with the values or the whys, or what do you want to do from here? And then, work out what the course of next best actions are. It's like, I'd love to have another go again. Okay, great. What
becomes
would that
fuel?
Yeah, that's it. Like I was saying earlier, it's like, how do we relate to these experiences, not the experiences themselves? A lot of people go, well, failure is bad. Is failure bad? Because it's necessary for improvement.
I've seen no evidence of it being bad.
Yeah.
Like everybody that's ever experienced anything that people would look up to in admiration perspective has failed.
Exactly.
Like numerous times.
Yeah.
And that's when I have these conversations with young men, like a Confident Man Project thing. And what I try to relate to them is like all of your favorite superheroes, all your favorite athletes, whatever the element that they look up to, the reason why you're drawn to them is the human side. Yep. Is the fact that you've seen them struggle, you've seen something that you relate to, and nothing's perfect. Because if it was perfect, you probably wouldn't be drawn to them. Yeah. But we just have, even though we know that, people just are like, didn't get my way the first time. This is ruined.
I always think when people say that to me, I'm always like, they're trying to make me feel better. Like they feel sorry for me. So that's the go-to to try and make me feel better. Like, oh yeah, failure's good. Okay. Well, so we sort of convince ourselves that it's like rules for thee and not for me, don't we?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's timing. It's like, you don't want to hear that straight after.
Yeah.
2 seconds after the failure.
Yes.
Allow them to have the party.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's why it is important to just acknowledge, make a space to acknowledge and understand the experiences that we're having. It's like, you're excited because of a big victory. Cool. Let's celebrate that. A lot went into that. Oh, you feel down because you didn't reach what you're after. Yeah. Yeah. It feels like crap when someone comes up to us and they're just, give us the answer too soon where we're still trying to process and accept the experience.
Yeah, for sure. And how much reflection is too much in terms of the actual, I guess, holes in the performance that may have led to the outcome? So if they're reflecting with coach, let's say on a team sport of like, there was this big loss, here's the things technically that broke down. We'll work on those in training. Let's rewatch this. I know it's actually grand final day. It's just such an apt topic. But I know a lot of, like footy teams will rewatch the game and they'll really reflect on like where the holes were.
Yep.
But at what point is it just sort of like, okay, we have to move on. Like we have to move forward.
It's got to translate into an action. It's got to be digested into a lesson. And at that point, once we have identified it and you're like, okay, I know what that is. I know why that happened. And I know what I need to do to make an improvement on that the next time around. That's it. We close the book on that one and we start to act on that and shift the improvement.
Is it useful, do you think, to for coaches or like yourself working with athletes to draw a line or like to do a timer or to like do something that signals that that's the end of the reflective period now?
That's it. It's a tricky one. I tend not to. I think because of that individual differences piece, some people have just a preference or just it's just within their natural person of who they are to just need that little bit more time to process it. And so it's not about trying to rush them and hurry them through it because you don't want to be the person that comes up straight after the performance providing the answer to them when they're not ready for it. I think you can highlight to them that you're like, okay, we've been on this now for a little bit. We know the lesson already. Why are we still here? And you can kind of just make, hold up the mirror a little bit and not in a judgmental way. Like it was really painful. So we're here still. Why is it still here? And how do we guide towards what matters to you? And that, sorry to sort of keep jumping back to psychological flexibility.
No, it's good.
But one of the pieces that I really, really love about it is that it's one of the only interventions that like incorporates like helping people move towards what they care about. All the other interventions are about minimizing symptoms or like removing discomfort.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, well, sorry. All is a big statement, not all. But most of them come with come from the lens of how do we minimize the, troubles that this person's having. Whereas psychological flexibility looks at that values piece, the committed actions piece. What does a rewarding life look like to you?
I love that. Yeah. Before we move on to Alice's next question, it kind of was touched on a little bit there, and this is actually a question from someone this morning, is a professional athlete that has just finished their career, or might have been a semi-professional amateur, and they've moved on. You talked about cricket. There was this abrupt thing. How do you help somebody in that situation go to the next steps? We've talked about you can become the identity of if I'm not a footballer anymore, who am I, or whatever it is. What does that look like when someone finishes that and they go from professional to amateur or professional to nothing?
Yeah, I want to know the answer to that too. I feel like I can talk to my personal experience a little bit, and I guess to that it was, I felt like sport gave me a lot, and when I stopped it, it was the realization many years later that probably wasn't the best approach to go by. So it was like, how do I reconnect with what I learned from it? I feel like what I'm doing now is I've now picked up that next chapter of what I want to do from that. I'm now using my body of experience that I've had with that. I'm informing it even more. I'm enriching it even more. I'm doing something that I really care about that I feel like has been a big part of who I am. So I think as it is a careful understanding of like, hey, that has formed a lot. But I think, sorry, I'm jumping around a bit. It has formed a lot of who you are in your identity. But there's also work that comes before that again, which is like, we're already doing the work beforehand that what you do is not your identity. Your sport and your sporting results are not your identity. So now we get to this point where we go, hey, remember how we've done all that work beforehand? So we're now ready to go, what is the, something meaningful that you want to do?
I imagine it's the same with injury, big devastating injury.
Yeah.
If a lot of that body of work had have been done beforehand, it's probably a lot less painful to deal with a big setback. Now you suddenly can't train. It's like, oh my God, I'm super depressed. So probably a similar thing, right?
Yeah. So if we don't want the result to define us, then what do you want to define you? And
so the values, as you said, it goes back to that, like in 10 years, how do I want people to talk about me? How would I want to talk about myself? How did I carry myself?
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. There's the obituary one, if someone was like to write about you, like what would you hope that the people
She had a large snatch. It was a ginormous snatch on the platform.
It's something that I've said a few times years ago when I was on podcasts. It was like, if you snatch 100 kilos and you're an asshole, you're just an asshole. Like no one really actually remembers.
Yeah.
Like same as with certain sporting athletes. Even if someone was really good, they'll probably talk more about the person than the accolades.
Yeah.
If depending on the athlete, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know whether you've made any mistakes in your career.
Yeah, tell us the juiciest one.
Yeah.
Blur out your face.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, like I'm putting you on the spot here and you haven't sort of pre-thought of anything, but is there anything you sort of reflect back in your earlier days when you first started working in this field that you've changed your mind on, that you're like, I don't approach things like that anymore with my athletes?
Yeah, joke's on you. I'm a heavy self-critic.
I thought you were gonna be like,
I think about this all the time.
I'm perfect.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go the other way.
No, I think maybe you can relate, like as someone that's competed. I think part of what I think helps people be great at what they're doing is like,
competitive.
They're competitive, but they're never willing to. They're not satisfied with what they've done.
Yeah.
And it's about having a healthy relationship with that, because that can go too far where we just really beat ourselves up unnecessarily. But it's people that are satisfied with what they're doing, they just stop doing it. Right? It's like, oh, okay, I've done the basics, and I'm satisfied. So why do more? Sorry, that wasn't to dodge the question. I think. It's been really tricky. I think relaxation techniques has been something that's, it was really popular. Like it's kind of the first thing that you find when you come across sports psychology.
Thanks, Wim Hof.
So, hey.
I was going to say, thanks, Wim Hof.
You mean like box breathing, like things like that, right?
Yeah. Progressive muscle relaxation, box breathing. I'm still trying to understand, I guess, its place in it, but I was very fortunate. I really wish I remembered the researcher's name, but I did some professional development with an Australian researcher who was studying clutch performance in sport, and then he evaluated all of the techniques that help athletes in sport with clutch performance, and relaxation techniques was like weakest evidence to support that. So it's because you need the adrenaline. You need to be firing on all cylinders. If I relax you too much, I've just taken you out of it. That's it. We also fall into this idea of moderating the level of energy that we're bringing to the situation. I'm not relaxed. Oh no, what do I do? I'm not relaxed. How do I bring my relaxation down?
Hyper conscious of your state, which is just probably making you less relaxed.
Just drags us away from task-focused performance, and it makes us. That's that metacognitive worry. It actually makes it worse. Yeah. It's like when you're not relaxed.
I'm not relaxing. Oh my god, he said relax. I can't relax.
That's it.
That's especially with like the technology that we have, like heart rate monitors, blah blah blah. I'm trying to get this down to whatever. Like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sleep score metrics and all these types of things can be tricky. There's been some research that the stress from looking at your metrics is
people
worse.
Will let it define a day.
Yeah,
they could wake up feeling fresh as a daisy. I got a bad score. Day's gonna be shit.
Yeah.
It kills me.
That is literally why I don't wear my Whoop band anymore.
Yeah.
Because if I had like a heavy day of training or whatever, or a competition or something, and my score would be like average, it would just like get in my head.
It's I think the study was on like that health data and health metrics and the stress of trying to manage that data versus like eating unhealthy food, and it was like healthier to just eat the unhealthy food than the stress. I was like, that is wild.
That is wild.
I'm gonna have a Big Mac after this.
So what you're saying is
nice. Nice. That's performance.
Yeah, that's actually so interesting. I was going to ask you about breathing and like, what do we,
Yeah, it's really tricky. So like because you look at some things like shooting sports, and lowering your heart rate is actually task performance. Like you actually need to lower your heart rate. Like military snipers need to lower their heart rate, and because the heart rate affects the gun barrel, which affects the bullet, and you can't hit a target really far away. And same thing with Olympic shooting.
I just read that beta blockers are illegal to take for Olympic shooters.
Interesting. Okay, I haven't read that.
I think they have been forever.
Well, it hasn't changed. It's just I just learned
you didn't know that they were.
But in other sports, they're not. But in a sport, like you said, where you actually want everything to like down regulate, they're banned.
For sure.
Interestingly,
Okay. I guess that makes sense then if it's a competitive advantage from a substance. But the trying to understand, like sometimes I sort of you innocently want people. You want people to feel calm. I want people to feel good in what they're doing, and so I think innocently at the beginning you try to comfort people, and you offer some of those relaxation strategies, hoping that it calms them down and helps them perform. And this strange correlation happens. Like when people are relaxed, they do perform better, but it's not because they're relaxed. It's because they're more easily able to focus on the task.
Yeah, task focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It always every time you've mentioned this today, it keeps reminding me of. Do you know who Phil Jackson is?
no.
NBA basketball coach.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes, I do. Yeah.
He has this. It happens like numerous times. His book called 11 Rings is like fascinating, even though he's not a sports psychologist. Like a lot of the practices are, individualization and meeting people where they're at, and values. And anyway, there's a couple of points throughout it where right before really, really big moments in history of basketball, like one of them to Kobe was like, Kobe come over here, he's like, stop trying to control the game, let it go. And it's like after that, it's like the whole performance changed completely. And just this idea of like, because he's like, his whole idea was like, we train so hard on the fundamentals that when it comes time to the game, I don't want you thinking. You are professional athletes. You are genetic freaks. Like, if anything, I just need you to do what you do best.
Yeah.
Don't think, go out there and have fun, or don't think, go out there and do whatever it is. So it comes, every time it comes back to, it always comes back to, as you said, focusing on the task.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, whatever comes in, being able to have the skill to let it go out the other side at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a sick example. And I think a couple of cool things is like the relationship between the coach and the player probably allows the coach
100%.
to really call them out and be like, hey,
the trust.
Hey, we've been here before. I know what you're capable of. What are we doing?
Yeah.
So the relationship between the coach and player is awesome there to be able to have that accountability. But yeah, like you said, we've got to really trust the preparation that we've done. And sort of when you look at the maybe neuroscience side of it, it's like we practice to automate the task so that you don't think about it, so that your cognitive resources are free to focus on other things like strategy and what's my opponent doing and hey, what's this moment look like right now?
Yeah.
So that your body can move automatically. And paradoxically, when we over-focus on a well-trained movement, we interrupt that automatic process and it messes us up a lot.
100%. Yeah.
Do you think there's a correlation, or have you seen any research where there is a correlation between people that perform better in sports, maybe like in that high pressure environment, so on game day, they're not necessarily better athletes physically, but just better in game day, they generally perform better, are the people that get the practice in other areas of their life in a similar pressure cooker environment. So automatically my brain goes to like someone that does a lot of public speaking. It makes sense to me that they would then be good at high pressure sport performance.
Yeah, there are skills and traits that transfer across domain. So being able to manage uncomfortable moments like public speaking, there's a level of psychological flexibility that you develop from that. Your comfort with discomfort, your ability to teach yourself that you're capable of it in that moment, those types of things, they translate across environments to some degree, not one-to-one, but yes, there are traits like that help athletes if they have that experience in another thing. And actually, we try to do that to help our athletes do better in those elements too. So it's the willingness to seek out a little bit of discomfort where they're willing to do it. With the intention that that's going to build the skill to help us with the sport. So if you're worried about what's happening or what's going to happen on game day, firstly, how do we up the intensity of your training so that you're highly competent to do it, maybe even more competent than necessary to do it? And then secondly, how do we look at environments outside of sport where we can practice meeting that experience as it shows up and
that's very
it translate back into your sport?
Yeah. How would you go about undoing an embedded narrative that someone has that they are a choker? I choke. I'm not good in competition. I'm great in training, but I choke. And that's sort of something that you've determined is sort of that is a embedded belief now. That is who I am. And presumably when that's embedded, it's going to be self-fulfilling until you can challenge that, right?
Yeah. Oh, man, that's
Would you sort of build some evidence in smaller, less pressurized settings and go from there? Or like, where do you start?
That's a great question. I have to think about that. But yeah, I think we have to be careful, I think, with the evidence building side of things, because it's like, I think we make this assumption that the logic will just cure us. It's like, it doesn't. Like
Yeah.
you can
Brain
have
doesn't work that way.
all the logical data in the world, and your brain's going to do its job
Yeah.
and find all these stories and things that have hurt us in the
Yeah.
past or could happen to us in the future, and do its job and try to predict that it's going to happen again.
Yes.
So the data doesn't tend to help in
And
that
also
situation.
you can't out-logic yourself from an illogical problem.
Yeah.
So if you've made a problem that is actually quite illogical,
Yes.
no one can sort of logic you out of that,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
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 It's a tough one.
So it is a tricky one. I think it's like, well, okay, how do we acknowledge? I think of it like writing a book, maybe like a narrative approach here. Like that was a chapter in the book that's in the past now, but there's pages in this book that haven't been written yet.
Oh, that's cool.
So
I like that.
What is the story that you want to write about it from this point forward, acknowledging that has happened and that was part of the story that you
it's
have
part
for
of your
yourself.
story.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I really like that. So it's like a little bit of like a hopeful perspective.
Yeah, it's putting a sense of control that it's helping them understand that they still have control over the direction of their life. It's like, because I think part of that narrative is like, well, it's
What was will be.
it's just going to keep it's
Yeah.
writing itself out in the future of my story. It's not.
Yeah.
It exists as part of you and you experienced it. But actually the pages are blank and you have control to write something on those pages. So what do you want to write?
Cool.
Love
What
that.
level of sport does someone need to get to in order to engage a sports psychologist?
Any. We work with all sorts of people. I work with people as young as 9, as old as 70 something. So
Wow.
Love that.
yeah, weekend warriors, people that just want to get a little bit better. Yeah, professionals contact us too. But yeah, it's really anyone. We try to support everyone across the journey.
Are you finding more now the weekend warriors? Because I imagine for some people, like for me, I've recently gone back. Basketball was my childhood sport.
Yeah.
And I played at a reasonable level up until I was like 18, 19. I kept playing, but I never took it as seriously after that.
Yeah.
Once representative basketball finished, it was just there. It filled the void for a few years, but I never took it as seriously. Now that I've gone back and I'm playing with people that are much better than me, there's almost this like, it brings me back to my youth, and I actually absolutely love it. There's something about playing with people that are better than me that almost reminds me of growing up and the challenge and the trying to get better at it. And have you found like because I now go and shoot the basketball from time to time. I haven't shot a basketball outside of a basketball game in forever.
Yeah.
I dribble the basketball around here because I want to get better at my skills. Like I like the idea of the skill not dropping off.
Yeah.
But is that like, as you say that, I'm like, oh, I feel like I could go on tour, even though you know what I mean? Like I feel like there'd be more, like most of your roster could potentially be people that are like, this is something that I generally enjoy. How do I get better? I know I'm not going to be LeBron James, but how can I be the best that I can be at that?
Yeah.
Are you finding more of that, like more general people than...
I've been astounded at just the overwhelming positive sort of, I guess, predisposition people have to the work, because there is a stigma in psychology that is like, if you see a psychologist, then something's wrong with you, you're broken, you're crazy. So it's really unfortunate that sort of stigma still does play a role in some ways, but a lot of people are finding a much more positive sort of experience and connection with it, and they are more open and willing to just sort of have that approach to it, where they're just like, I just want to come here and I just want to find joy in the sport again and connect with that. And it's so interesting because you sort of look at childhood experiences with sport. We all found sport through just fun in childhood.
Yes.
And then as we got older,
turn to something else.
it turns into something else. It's like, I've got to perform at it, and it's part of my identity. And we really bake in sort of the results. It's like,
for sure. I was going to go to the NBL.
Yeah.
I remember having arguments with my brother, who was a very good footballer.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in the NBL before you play AFL. And he was much closer than me.
Yeah.
Actually, on that childhood thing, because that sort of opens up a really fascinating topic that feels quite contentious at the moment, because it feels like there's kind of a narrative with two sides of the coin when it comes to our children playing sports. One side is like, let's just encourage them to move, have fun, like whatever. And then the other side is sort of like, we're making our kids soft. We need to stop teaching them that life is a participation medal. Like this has just gone too far. Like we're not even giving first, second, third place out now. Where do you sit?
It's a good question. So on the research of participation awards is like they're not effective, and they make the kids feel horrible about themselves because they know they didn't earn it anyway.
That's what the research is now?
Yeah.
Oh, God, thank God, because
Okay.
that's what I believed. And I was like, Anyway, go on.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's
no,
fascinating.
yeah.
Because I was like, am I ruining the kids around me?
Yeah. Okay.
Like they're aware of like
They know where they
the
came.
dynamics are. Yeah, they know it, and so like to award them for and to put them on a stage for it or whatnot.
It feels like the loser award for them.
Yeah. Then they're aware of it, and they don't acknowledge it, and
Yeah. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily that helpful to do that.
Okay.
I got an inquiry maybe a year or two ago from the ABC about an article where I think it was it parents were wanting to ban competitive sport from school because they think that it's the cause of
bullying or whatever,
depression, anxiety. Our kids are crumbling because there's too much pressure put on them to compete in sport. And it's I don't think. Well, what are we saying? It's like we want to avoid challenges in life. I think sport just puts a magnifying glass on the fact that stuff is challenging. And like, why can't it be? You don't have to be the best. It's okay to not be the best at something. Like you can just challenge yourself
to try to get better.
Yeah. And there's a very strong movement against comparison too.
Yeah.
And I understand that, and it as a parent, you're sort of like, oh, we want to move away from our kids thinking little Johnny's better than me because X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you're saying, that is emulated. It's going to be emulated in every area of their life. And the more you sort of want to like shield our children from something, the more potentially like painful it is when they're in the adult world, and guess what? Like you're up for a promotion against this person and this person. It is a comparison. Like that's just part of life, right?
Yeah, I'd say adversity, difficulties, emotional ups and downs, they're coming your way, whether you like it or not. It might not be now. You might be doing a good job at avoiding it right now, but at some point it's coming.
And so what would be a good approach to take then? Let's say, and my children are really young, they're not really here yet, but let's say my kid comes home from a cross-country race and he's super disappointed because he came last and he like trained really hard for it and he's really, really disappointed. Now, obviously, I want to comfort him. What are some strategies that I guess will sort of not necessarily shield him from the discomfort of whatever it is, of that feeling, but will also empower him to keep trying, try again. Failure's okay, but, it's also okay to be upset when you didn't rise to the expectations that you had of yourself. Like, am I telling him, don't worry about it, you tried your best and that's all that matters? Or am I saying something more along the lines of like, yep, you're really disappointed, like that feels really uncomfortable, doesn't it? Like,
yeah, it's a fantastic question because the other perspective here is like, well, you have a relationship with your kids, and so your kids see you as mum. So who are you presenting to them at that point in time? Are you presenting mum or are you presenting coach? So it's really, really tricky because I think the relationship you have with your children is a lifetime. Whatever the result is of the sport or whatever you want to help them work through as a result of what happened in sport, that's maybe momentary. So I think I always encourage parents with their children to keep that relationship in mind. What type of relationship do you want to have with your children? Like, yes, okay, you want to sort of teach them some values and things in that. So, being able to just acknowledge like what they're experiencing, what they're feeling, asking them some questions. Why do you think you felt that way? What were you hoping for? Helping them try to find the answers to things, helping them be autonomous.
What does this make you want to do next?
Parents are sort of an emotional container for their children's emotions because they don't have the development of the frontal lobe to inhibit the emotion and manage the emotion and process it.
Yeah.
So
we're sort of trying to model how to do that, right?
Yeah. Well, you also sort of like their emotions overflow onto you, and so it's like our job to hold the emotion with them and use our developed frontal lobes to just process it with them together. So you don't necessarily have to solve it or anything like that. It's just
that's the key, isn't it? I think that we fall into often as parents, like you
fix it.
You actually don't need to, and it's the same when a friend comes to you and they want consoling or like whatever,
or a husband and a wife, right? The husband's always trying to fix something.
I think we always think we have to solve it and offer a solution whereby exactly what you just said, sometimes just holding the feelings with them is actually what they're after to soothe that moment, right?
Yeah.
What about then if they failed and now they want to quit? That's always something with that I think about with my children of like, I don't want to be that like dance mom that's like, get back out there, sweetie.
No
like,
quitting. We don't raise quitters.
Literally.
Not in this household.
Literally.
Yeah.
But you also do want to, I guess, encourage that, that resilient side of them as well. Like, where's that sort of balance?
Yeah. I think probably needing a little bit of time again, like we've said with the athlete that's finished a competition and you're not satisfied with what happened, like what's the kind of timing and those types of things. Giving them a bit of time. A lot of kids will just say, yep, I'm ready to quit, I'm quitting, and they don't mean it. Like they're kind of they're just venting the emotions out. So yeah, we're trying to go through that process again of holding it with them and validating it all. It's painful, it's hard, I know. I think we're trying to come back to like autonomy and their choice and things. Like if they really, really don't want to do it, if they don't see the value in it, then
go to the next sport. Or go to the next thing.
Do something. Try to do something else. Or I think what we're trying to say is like we're trying to encourage them to do what matters for them. Like do something important. Like it's like, okay, this one thing might be not the thing that works for you. Maybe it stirs things up too much, but there'll be something else. And we're still trying to, you can still have the value of like, not necessarily, quitting's such a tricky word to use because it's like immediately we all think like, quitting's a bad thing.
There's so many connotations.
There are some really good examples of like this is actually hurting you.
Yeah.
This is actually making you less than what you want to be.
I think you touched on it though, like it's the timing. It's like when that pain is white hot and that disappointment and that embarrassment.
We don't make decisions in this.
That's not the right time.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So like maybe as a parent, it's something like just acknowledging that all the feelings, and then it's like we can come back to it.
If next week after one practice you're still feeling the same way, we'll talk about it then.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Gosh, this has been
this is one of my favorite episodes.
Really?
Yeah, dead set.
Guys, I appreciate it.
Fascinating. If listeners are listening to this and they want to get hold of you potentially to chat about their own sport or to sort of see what you're all about, what's the best way for them to do so?
Go to the Condor Performance website. Just Google us on Google. Yeah, Condor Performance. We're a team of sport and performance psychologists based in Australia. We're sort of scattered around in different states: Adelaide, Queensland, Sydney, Newcastle, Melbourne, so Canberra, I think we've got someone. So,
awesome. And you guys do esports as well?
Yes, got a couple of people in the team with experience in esports.
That's amazing.
It's
incredible.
Again, another one of those interesting places. Like we compete at everything apparently.
It's so broad.
Sure,
but I guess it's that for some reason is really comforting to me because it just reminds me like no matter whether you're throwing a barbell or you're in an esport or you're doing golf or whatever, like it's a very human experience to have that pressure around game day and performance. Performance is performance. Exactly. Yeah. I love that. Anything else from you, sir?
No, I think you've answered all. There was a few questions that the people when we were chatting about this morning asked, but I feel like a lot of it's been wrapped up really neatly. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.
It just made me want to go and study psychology and become a sports psychologist. Actually, the last question I've got, which we could ask off air because that's about to switch off, is do you know who Bill Beswick is? Have you heard much of him? He the reason why I call him my real life Ted Lasso, because he was a basketball coach for England before going into sports psychology. And like I feel like the longer I've coached for, the more I'm like, the physical stuff's the easy part. It's like helping guide and nurture athletes as to getting that sports performance. And I feel like if someone's doubting it, like this is like, and you would like to be good. You go to your physio, you go to the gym, you've got your coach. Like, this is an untapped resource.
I appreciate the good word that you put in for our profession. But I think when you sort of look at competitiveness and how athletes, what domains do they have to be able to compete in? I guess strangely you could go, well, people could become very, very good without any mental skills or any mental practice. But if you are looking to have an advantage in somewhere over someone else, like it is a great place to find it because people tend to reach the physical technical limits really quickly. It becomes really hard once you're competing against very competent people to then just straight out raw outperform them.
Who holds
especially
together
over the course of a career where there's then injuries or there's then a series of bad performances that are going to spiral you. Exactly.
Things change it.
Exactly. That's so cool.
Awesome.
I love it. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That was so cool.